Om Sruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram. So now we are almost going to conclude the Vivekachudamani. So in the last class we saw that the process of realization, that the description of the state of Samadhi was being described by Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya. And now we will find that after he has described the state, now he is through the mouth of the Guru, as we know that the entire Vivekachudamani is a conversation between the Guru and the disciple, the teacher and the student. Now after describing the state of Samadhi, now the Guru is urging the disciple, the Samadhi leading to the state of Jivan Mukti, the liberation while living. So that's the state. After he describes the state of Jivan Mukti, now he is urging his disciple to attain that state, to attain the state of liberation in life. So what it is being said in the 472nd verse. 472nd verse, what it is saying? Bhavan api idam paratatvam atmanah swarupam ananda ghanang vicharya vidhuya moham swa manah prakalpitam mukta kritartha bhavatu prabuddha. So bhavan api idam paratatvam atmanah. So what does bhavan api means? That you too, that previously following the parampara, following the tradition of the teacher and the disciple, many have went through that realization. So you too can go to that state of realization. So by bhavan api, it indicates that you too have the potentiality to realize the spiritual dimension of your existence, which can take you to the state of Jivan Mukti, which is the assurance of enjoying the state of liberation in this very life. It's not something post-mortem state that after death you go to heaven, nothing like that. So Vedanta's assertion is that once you attain that spiritual illumination, even while living, you are free. You enjoy the state of liberation even while living, and that's the goal of human life. As in the same Vivekachudamani, Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya says, Jivan Mukti Sukha Prapti Hetave Janma Dharana. The purpose of human birth is to attain the state of Jivan Mukti. So that's the thing which you too have the capacity to attain. Bhavan api. How you can attain? Vidhuya mohang swa manah prakalpitam. It's not something that you have to attain which is not with you. It's already with you. The spiritual state of your existence, that's your being. But because of delusion, because of moha, you are just imagining this world of phenomenal existence. So that is swa mana prakalpitam. So it's a delusion created by your own mind. So you have to get rid of that delusion, that moha, vidhuya. Vidhuya means to wash off, to cleanse all the impurities which arises from that delusion. So vidhuya moham swa mana prakalpitam. So by that you can also attain the state of the spiritual illumination. What's that stage like? Atmana swarupam anandaghanam. So when one realizes that state, he realizes that it is the state of the bliss which is undiluted. Anandaghana means nothing else is there to intersperse with that bliss. in our present state of existence, we never have uninterrupted bliss. But that's the state where the bliss is uninterrupted, undiluted. That's what is meant by Ananda Ghana. And that state is not something which you have to attain. That is your real nature. That's Swarupam, Atmana Swarupam. That is your nature. So you attain that state, and then you will understand what fulfillment is, what liberation is. In this life, we are never fulfilled. Whatever we may attain, we think, if I get this, if I get that, I will be fulfilled. And when we find that when we attain that state, again some new desires has arisen. We never attain to the state of that fulfillment. So here they are saying that once you attain that state, that the state of fulfillment, you will find that you have attained the state of liberation, and that will give you that sense of fulfillment which is never to be again broken with some new desires. It is the final fulfillment, ultimate fulfillment you get through that realization. So what it is, this sloka, this verse is actually indicating that first this bhavanapi is very important. That we find that this in Vedanta's this Vedantic tradition, this is very important. What's important? That the spiritual realization is not exclusive for a chosen few. That sometimes we find that the religions claim that this realization is for the prophet. The others cannot have that same type of realization. Others can just have belief. They have to believe in the prophet. Prophet is the one who has the direct communion with the Father in heaven, with God. Others, by believing in the prophet, can after death just attain the state of that spiritual illumination. But here in this Vedanta they are saying no, it is not something exclusive for a chosen few. Its efficacy is universal. So it is just like, in Vedanta they say, it's like the patenting of a drug. So when, in some vaccination or some vaccine or some drug is there in the market, how can it come to the market? That first it is tested on some individuals, some 100 individuals. And it has to, the success rate has to be 99%, 98%. And then only that can be patented. It can be used for all. So first those test drive is there. After that it can be patented for all. So unless the spiritual path can lead us to that ultimate goal, it is if only for just a chosen few, then that all the spiritual path is of no avail. So here that's why they are saying that no, it has been proven, it is patented. So many previously have went to that state by following this path. So know it for certain that even for you, which at present is not manifested, it is potential. As Swami Vivekachudamani used to say, that religion is the manifestation of the divinity, which is already in human beings. So it is already there. You have to manifest that. And that capacity is there, potentially existing in each and every being. So that's what is being indicated by Bhavan Api. Follow the tradition. By following the parampara, you can also go to that realization. And then how that vidhuya moham, the delusion, how the delusion comes into existence. That in Vedanta they say that the conscious principle, when gets associated with the body-mind complex, from it generates the ego. Avidya asmita. When the ego is generated, then immediately I forget my real nature. I start thinking, that I am a limited being, and for my happiness, I have to just go on getting the things in the outside world, isn't it? So many desires are leading us to so-called grab the things of the external world, to cling to the external sensate objects. And because of The ignorance, when the ego comes, we forget our real nature, that I am ever fulfilled, I am in eternal bliss. We forget that. And egos forces us. Why it forces us? Because now we are identified with the body-mind complex. Something behind is echoing your eternal, but as I am attached to the body-mind complex, to realize that echo of eternity, I have to sustain my body. I have to nourish it. Somehow that mistaken notion has come, that idea of eternity is now being imposed on the body-mind complex. That's what we are doing throughout our life. We are trying to realize the eternity in this physical plane. How we can extend our life, how we can have more and more happiness. We forget that the urge for happiness, the urge for fulfillment is actually coming from within, which is already fulfilled. Its echo is being heard through the body-mind complex, and we take that echo to be real and try to realize through the body-mind complex the eternity and fulfillment. And that's how this eternal chase after the desires arises. From avidya comes karma. From karma results in karma. That from ignorance comes the desire, and the desire leads us to the action. And this cycle of avidya, karma, karma goes on life after life. We transmigrate because of this delusion, because of this moha. We enter into this cycle of avidya, karma, karma, and it drives us life after life. So this is the the universe which we have created. We are chasing after the desires. This is the universe which we have created with our mind. Manah prakalpitam. How to come out of it? By realizing the Atman, which is already, that by its nature is bliss. The Swami Vivekananda's example, which we give again and again, this will try to help us in explaining that how by getting rid of the delusion I can get established in the self. Swamiji is saying that our mind, this mana, is just compare it with a lake. It's just like a lake. And all our thoughts, the desires, are just like the waves on that lake. And Swamiji is saying the base, the bottom of the lake is our real nature. Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa. That Ananda Swarupata gets obscured because of these waves, these infinite desires in the form of the waves in the surface of the mind, in the surface of the mind, in the lake of the mind. These desires are there, and they obscure the bliss factor. The Sat Swarupata, the Chit Swarupakata, this never gets obscured. I am always aware I am. That speaks of the Sat Swarupata, the Chit Swarupata. I am aware of my existence. But what gets obscured is the bliss factor, Ananda Swarupata. When the desires are there in the mind, Ananda Swarupata gets obscured. Now when I have an intense desire, one intense desire, now what it does, it just engulfs all other small desires. We have so many desires. Now most probably I have an intense desire to purchase the latest model car. So this desire will engulf all other desires, and in the mind one huge desire will be manifesting. What is that? I want to have that latest model car. And when I manage to get it, I feel terribly happy. I think the car has given me the happiness. But actually what has happened, the moment I manage to get the car, for the time being, that let go ensues. There is no waves in the mind. All the desires have now subsided for the time being. The filtration factor for the bliss is no more there. There is nothing to filter that bliss out. So for the time being, the bliss comes from within. It is coming from within. It is my real nature. And I, because of ignorance, think that it is the object which has given me that happiness. But the happiness is coming from within. So this is the moha, that I am an individual, and for my fulfillment I have to chase after the desires of life, and it is the objects that give me happiness. But the objects have no capacity to give us happiness. That's why Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya, in his commentary in Bhagavad Gita, he mentions that the world doesn't have the capacity to give even the fragrance, the gandha matra of happiness. It doesn't have that capacity. It is just an advertisement. The happiness is coming from within, but because of the ignorance, I think the object has given me happiness. When that ignorance falls off, then what I have to do? I just have to keep my mind calm, get rid of all the desires, be detached. And when the mind is no more having its play, it's calm, the turbulence has gone, and then the self percolates, the bliss factor percolates through our body, mind, senses to make us realize the bliss, the eternal bliss, which is the essential nature of the self. And that has been indicated as Anandaghana. So once I get rid of all the moha, the delusion, which are the imagination of the mind. What's the imagination of the mind? That for happiness, I have to chase after the desires. This external world is there out, and I have to fulfill my desires by chasing after all the sensate pleasures of life. That's the imagination of the mind. Once I can wash it out and keep my mind calm, vidhui, this cleansing of the mind is the only spiritual practice. When I can do that, then the bliss, which is the essence of my nature, there is no more obscuring factor for that. That has been totally removed, and you always experience that bliss, which is the nature of yourself. That's being indicated by the term Atmana Swarupam, which is Atmana. What is the Swarupa? Anandaghana, uninterrupted bliss. The scripture speaks of it as Taila Dharavat, that when I pour oil from one vessel to the other, I will find that because of the viscosity, there is no interruption in the flow. There is uninterrupted flow. And that uninterrupted flow is something which is being compared with the Ananda Swarupata of the self. That it is just bliss which has no interruption. And that's the thing in which we get established. And that's the state of liberation now. Because all the desires has fallen off. I am experiencing the bliss always within. I find that there is nothing else required for my fulfillment. So I have become Kritartha, Krita Artha. So what this Krita Artha means? These words are very significant. Artha means purpose. To attain any goal, Artha means purpose, goal. To attain any goal, I have to do some action in my life. So here what they are saying, Krita Artha, Krita Artha. Krita means done. So all my chase after the desire, for which all the actions which I had to adopt, I have to just adopt certain actions to get the goals, to purpose of my life. Those actions are no more needed. I have attained my goal once for all. So all my actions are done. Krita means already done. There is no more need for chasing after the desire. I have attained the ultimate fulfillment. So that's just see, the words are so important. The Krita Artha, Krita Artha. Now I have become fulfilled. There is no more need for chasing after the desires. And desires entails in work, and there's the work, all this work which entails in fulfillment of the desire. They are no more there. This motivation factor has gone for me, and I am established in myself, and I am fulfilled, and I am liberated from this cycle of avidya kama karma, ignorance resulting in the kama desire, that entailing in action. I came out of it now. So Swamiji said that this life is just like the Ferris wheel. We enter into it, we go round and round, and when that realization happens, we come out of it. The Ferris wheel is this chakra, the samsara chakra is going on. It is because of our delusion we go into it, And when we get our illumination, we come out of it. So we come out of this cycle of avidya kama karma, and that's the state of liberation. That even while living, you enjoy the state of liberation. That though you are still living, but all the desires has fallen off for you. The world becomes something like a virtual reality, as we give that example again and again. That how the desires falls off. That Swami Vivekananda's example. He was passing through the desert, he was thirsty, he was in search of water, and he saw a huge reservoir at a distance. He was to have water, he started moving towards it. And in no time, suddenly he saw that that reservoir has vanished. It's not there. It was a delusion. And then it came to his mind that, oh, it is just a mirage. I have studied it, but for the first time I have experienced it. Previously it was a conceptual knowledge, and now it's a realization. Now what's the difference? The next day, as I am still in my body-mind complex, I am moving through the desert, again I see the reservoir. As I am in my body-mind complex senses, so I can see this mirage again. But today there is a big difference. Yesterday it dragged me. Today it has lost the power to drag me. So that's the state of liberation, mukta. The world becomes apparent. I know the self is the substratum on which this apparent phenomenal existence is appearing. It has as such no tangible reality. And the substratum from which is appearing as this world of name and form, I am that substratum. It's non-dual. That I am just one with it. So there is no question of chasing after this desire. Because these are all apparent. I am already fulfilled. There is no need for the fulfillment of my desire. Because I am already ever fulfilled, ever free, ever in bliss. So that's the state which the Guru is asking the disciple that you have to attain that state. This shows the compassion of the Guru. We find in the life of Ramakrishna the same thing. His young disciple Niranjan, when he was coming to Dakshineshwar, one day we find Ramakrishna as if it is his yearning. He is asking Niranjan that will you waste your life? Won't you realize God in this very life? The tremendous yearning was there in the heart of Sri Ramakrishna. He was so much concerned about his disciples that his human birth should not be wasted. The only purpose of the human birth is to attain that state of liberation. And for that, he is urging him. The same urge we find in this verse where the Guru is urging the disciple to attain that state of Jivan Mukti, the liberation in life. And then, of course, after saying that, he says a very interesting thing. That what is the role of the Guru in this process? Can the Guru just take the disciple to that state? He's urging the disciple that he should go to that state. But at the same time, the Guru will be reminding him that it is you, that we are just the indicator. By following the scriptures, we have attained that state, and now we feel that we have that sense of fulfillment. I know what I have attained, and that gives me that a tremendous urge that others should also go to that state, because they don't know what they are missing. But at the same time, they have to endeavor on their part. As Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya has said that if you are hungry, if I take food, it is not going to appease your hunger. For appeasing your hunger, you have to take the food. So we can, at the most, what we can do, we can just give you the details, how to get the food. But at last it is you have to procure, and at last you have to eat. Even if I keep the food in front of you, unless you are eating, your hunger won't be satiated. So at last, that all the things I may keep in front of you, the scriptures, the Guru's own realization, he is putting it in front of the disciple as an index, as a pointer. But at the same time, if the disciple himself doesn't have that yearning to endeavor for that realization, no one can help him. As in English they say that you can take the horse to the water, but you cannot make it drink it. At last the horse has to drink it. So that's the idea which we will find the Guru is now saying to the disciple. What is saying in the 476th verse? Tatasthita vodhayanti gurava srutayo yatha pragyayaiva taret vidwan ishvara anugrihitaya. So the Guru as well as the Shrutis. Shrutis means the scriptures, the Vedas, the Vedanta, the Upanishads. So what they instruct, they can instruct the disciple tatasthita. Tata means the bank. Standing on the shore, I can just ask you, give you directions how to swim across the ocean of samsara, of the river of samsara. I cannot just take you by hand, tatasthita. I can just be just as if standing aloof on the shore. I can direct you. So, tatasthita vodhayanti gurava srutayata. The scriptures, the Guru, by standing aloof can give you the directions. Pragyayaiva tared vidwan. While the man of realizations crosses this ignorance, avidya, through illumination alone, he himself, through his practice, has to go to that illumination. Can he really go to the illumination through his practice? The next phrase is very important. Ishvara anugrihitaya. Your practice, that is not all. The grace of that God is very much, it has to be backed by supported by the grace of God. So what is actually speaking of? That the Guru and the scriptures are like the map or the GPS. The road has to be traversed by the disciple himself. Just when I am in the car, I use the GPS, but I have to drive myself. So the Guru and the scriptures are like that map or the GPS. The road has to be traversed by the disciple himself. In the Gospel we find, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna we find, Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, in Bengali, it is a pun of word. Those who know Bengali, they will understand it very precisely. I will translate, but that pun of the word, those who don't know Bengali, they will miss. What's that pun of the word? So Guru is saying, Ami dilem tore montor, ekhon montor. Ami dilem tore montor. This montor means mantra. I have given you the mantra. So mantra, montor. I have given you the mantra, and now it's your mind. Ekhon montor. So that mantra which the Guru has given, now if I cannot discipline my mind and contemplate on that mantra, then no one can help me. So at least I have to drive across. This mantra is just like the raft which I have to use to cross the river of this life. Once I have crossed, then the raft is no more needed. As Buddha used to say, no one carries the raft on his shoulder after crossing the river. So this mantra, these instructions which the Guru has given, with the help of that, I use it as a raft to cross the river of life, samsara. Is it by my effort that I cross it? But here again, we find Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya very subtly has added that Ishvara Anugrihitaya. It actually happens by the grace of the divine. Then where our effort stands, if it at last happens by the grace of the divine, we will find Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna is indicating a nice thing with the help of a story. What is the story? It's a parable that a bird was sitting on the mast of a ship, and the ship was in the deep waters of the ocean. Now the bird felt like going to the shore, flying to the shore. It first flew to the east direction, and then it found no land. It came back. It was very tired. It came and took a bit rest, again sitting on the mast of the ship. It got back some energy. It revived and then again flew to the west. Couldn't find any land. Came back, again sat on the mast, went to the north, went to the south. At last it was extremely tired. And now that resignation came. Let me just sit in the mast. Let the ship take me. So all our effort is to bring that resignation. We sometimes say that I have resigned myself completely to the divine, but it is mere words. It is not something which is coming from our realization. That realization comes only when we have exerted to our utmost, and to find that through my effort I cannot attain the goal. And then that resignation, true resignation comes. And once the resignation comes, the divine grace works on us. It's not that it was not there, but because Sri Ramakrishna says nicely that the wind of the grace is always blowing, but the wall of the ego obstructs it. It doesn't allow us to get saturated by that grace. The wall of ego is obstructing the wind of grace. So that ego has to fall off through endeavor, and then that true resignation comes, and then it is with the grace of the divine one attains that spiritual illumination. We can give another example with which we can understand that how the grace works. Suppose I am sitting on the branch of a tree. To fall, no effort is required. I am sitting on the branch of a tree, clinging to the branch. If I leave my hold, the gravitation will pull me down. Immediately it will pull me down. Just I have to leave the hold. But as I am holding to the branch of the tree, I don't fall. So no effort is required to fall. I just have to leave the hold. So similarly, the grace is always working on us. We are holding on to the ego. The branch of the tree is the ego. We are constantly holding. Even when I am doing my spiritual practices, still that ego is lingering. Who is doing? I am doing the spiritual practice. This I. That's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say a very interesting thing. When someone asked him, when shall I be free? His immediate reply was, when I cease to be. This I is the cause of bondage. We are clinging to it. With all our effort, when at last we get exhausted, the words of Ramakrishna, all our sadhana is just for getting our wings tired, to tire our wings. The wings get tired. At last, that resignation comes. That's the true resignation. It's not just a mere word of mouth. It's a true feeling from within. And then that let go ensues. You loosen your grip to the ego, and then the grace works on us. This grace, just the way when I lose my hold, the gravity pulls me down. Similarly here, when I lose the hold of my ego, the grace pulls me up and takes me to that spiritual realization. So that's why you will find very nicely this verse is saying, after saying that you have to attain that state, now the disciple will feel, oh, the Guru is urging so much, so he can help me out. He can help me. He can just hold me by my hand and take me to that realization. So immediately Guru is just warning him. He's just making him aware of the fact that I can just be the map. I can just be the GPS. But it is you who have to drive. And know it for certain that it is not that by driving you are going to go to the goal. The driving is just to make you exhausted, to at last realize by you yourself you cannot reach the goal, and then that the divine grace walks and it takes you to that realization. So what a wonderful idea which we find through this 476th verse. The Guru is speaking about this realization where we find a wonderful synthesis of Purushokara and the Kripa. Self-endeavor and grace. Both are required. Both has its own place. That you do your best, God will do the rest. So tatasthita bodhayanti gurava srutayo yatha pragyayaiva taret vidwan ishvara anugrahitaya. So we can, the gurus as well as the Shrutis, they instruct the disciples standing aloof. They cannot take you to the goal. While the man of realization crosses this ignorance, avidya, through the illumination which comes through the grace of God. So this is the idea which we find is we mentioned in the 476th verse. And then the conclusion of all discussions on the Vedanta, that Guru is almost going to the conclusion of his discourse. Still few more verses, of course quite a lot of verses are there. We will take not all the verses just there. We will just highlighting the important verses as we go through the conclusion. But before that, here we find that the conclusion on the discussion of Vedanta is being spoken of, is being drawn by this conclusion is drawn by the Guru in the 478th verse. What he's saying, that after all this discussion, that the idea which we have heard again and again, that the final words of Vedanta, what's it? And the words of Bhagavad Shankaracharya, Brahma Satya, Jagat Mithya, Jiva Brahmaiva Naparaha. This Brahma alone is the truth. This world is illusory. Then does it mean it is just an imagination? No. It is just a superimposition. Jiva Brahmaiva Na Apara. The Jiva is nothing but the Brahman. This Brahman is appearing as this world and as all the living beings. That's the idea. In conclusion, the Guru will be just delivering it to the disciple, this idea. So let's go through the verse, 478th verse. Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktihi Esha Brahmaiva Jiva Sakalang Jagatcha Akhanda Rupa Sthitihi Eva Moksha Brahma Advitiye Srutaya Pramanam. The verdict, the conclusion of all discussions on Vedanta. Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktihi. This Nirukti means the verdict, the final conclusion of all the Vedanta is what? Esha Brahmaiva Jiva Sakalam Jagatcha. That is Jiva, that all the living entities, all the living beings, and the whole universe, Jiva and Jagat, the living beings and the entire universe, Jagat is this universe, is nothing but Brahmaiva, is nothing but Brahman and Brahman alone. If this Jiva and the whole universe is nothing but Brahman. Brahmaiva Jiva Sakalam Jagat Cha. Cha means and. Sakalam Jagat, this whole universe and these living entities is nothing but Brahman. And liberation means abiding in Brahman, the indivisible entity, the ultimate indivisible non-dual entity, the Brahman. To abide in that is liberation. Akhanda Rupa Sthitihi Eva Moksha. When we abide in that Brahman, this our world, our false identification with the world has fallen off, and we are abiding with the Brahman and Brahman alone. That's the state of liberation. Liberation means abiding in Brahman, the indivisible entity. When you are abiding in Brahman, you become one with Brahman. Just like in a Upanishad, it has been mentioned very nicely that when you shoot an arrow on some, you aim the arrow on some object, say on the trunk of a tree, till the arrow pierces the trunk of the tree, there is two entities, the arrow and the trunk of the tree. But when the arrow has pierced to the trunk of the tree, then what has happened? The arrow has as if become one with the trunk. So that when you have realized, that duality falls off. When the realization, when you have pierced through this Shara Vedhavya, that in Upanishad they say, that pierce the goal. Once I pierced, I become one with it. And that's the state which has been spoken of as this Akhanda. Because unless I am one with it, the question of Akhanda doesn't come. I am, God is. There is a division. When I become one with God, there is no more division. So that's why the word Akhanda is very important. That Akhanda, I become just the one with it. And this Brahman. And that's the state of moksha. So Brahma, Akhanda Rupa Sthiti eva moksha, Brahma Advitiye. So this Advitiya. That alone exists. That as a non-dual existence, Srutaya Pramanam. At present, before, what can motivate me to go to that goal? At present, it is just the Shruti. The Shruti Pramana. What is the Shruti? The Vedas. What the word of the Vedas? It's nothing but the realization of the previous teachers, the previous sages who went to that realization. That's the realization which is mentioned in the Vedas. So that's the state of oneness with that Absolute, which is mentioned in the Shruti. You have to attain that, and that is the ultimate goal. So the Shruti reference, what we find in the Shruti, it is mentioned that Advitiyam, Brahma Ekam Eva Advitiyam. Brahman is one and non-dual. That word non-dual is important. Why? Whenever I say one, the idea of many is there. So to negate the idea of many, they say there's one and one alone, non-dual. Nothing exists apart from that. So that's the idea of that non-duality which we find is mentioned in the Shruti. In the words of Shankaracharya himself, as we were saying, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya Jiva Brahmaiva Naparaha. That Brahma alone is the reality. This world is Mithya. Mithya doesn't mean imaginary. It's superimposition. So it is not Trikal Avadhita. When I am in ignorance, I see it as the world. When the ignorance falls off, I see Brahman and Brahman alone. So it is not something which exists ever. With the dawn of ignorance, its existence ensues, and with the spiritual realizations, its existence falls off. Just like we give that example. When I am seeing a snake in a rope in the twilight hours, that that because of delusion I see the snake. The snake exists only as long as the delusion lasts. So it was not there before the delusion, it will not be there after the delusion, when the delusion breaks. But the rope is there always. So here Brahman is the ultimate substratum. The world appears because of the delusion. With the dawn of knowledge, the delusion falls off. So that's why it is not Trikalavadita. So it cannot be the truth. So it is not, that's why it is Mithya. And the Jiva is nothing but Brahman. As we can say that snake is nothing but the rope. It is appearing as the snake. So here also Jiva is nothing but the Brahman. It is appearing as this Jiva. There are so many entities. And this is the thing which is very, very universal. That we should know that this Vedanta is true because it has been substantiated by the realization of the mystics through all religious traditions. This unitary experience, the experience of myself as one with the ultimate reality, we find it in all the traditions. You will find the Sufi saint Mansur al-Hajjaj. He was persecuted. For his deliberation. What he said? Anal Haq. And for that he was persecuted. He was branded as a heretic. Why? Al-Haq means the truth. But when you add an before that, Anal Haq, it means I am the truth. And it was considered as blasphemous. It's blasphemy. How can you be the truth? How can you be the God? So that's why he was persecuted. Even Jesus, he is saying the same thing. I and my Father are one. This unitary experience we find in all the traditions which the Vedanta is speaking of. It is a very, very universal thing. That's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Shekhane shop shealer akra. When you go to that realization, you will find all the mystics are speaking in the same language. Just the way in a forest when a fox howls, all the fox will be reverberating through that sound. They will respond as if acknowledging that first howl. So similarly, all the mystics speak in the same manner. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. So this is we find the Guru's instruction ends here, which started in the verse 213. After the disciples' questions, the Guru's instruction started in verse 213, which comes to an end here. Next will follow the response of the disciple in some beautiful, inspiring verses. Being inspired by the Guru, the disciple will go to a state of realization, and from that state he comes back as a Kritarth, as a fulfilled being, and what he then relates his experience to the Guru, that all will be spoken of in the next verse, before ultimately the conclusion comes with the Guru's benediction. So we will go through this end section. It will take quite a few more classes to just go to that conclusion. We will take those portions gradually as we are nearing to the end of the conclusion of the discussion of the Vivekachudamani for the time being. So thank you all. Namaskars. So with this, we stop our discussion today.